There's a plant mentioned in scripture that used to grow in people's backyards. It was common, familiar, and it was used exactly when a stubborn cough wouldn't quit and chest congestion made every breath feel like a battle. Pharmaceutical companies know it exists. It's documented. But why does nobody talk about how hyssop can help loosen mucus the traditional way? Maybe because simple knowledge isn't nearly as profitable as over-the-counter solutions. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're not here to sell miracles. We're not here to attack modern medicine. We're here to talk about something far simpler, and maybe because of that, far more uncomfortable for those who profit from your not knowing. Knowledge that existed before you were born, that your grandparents carried without needing a prescription, and that quietly got left behind as pharmacy shelves kept getting bigger and bigger. Stay till the end. Because this video isn't just about an herb, it's about what you have every right to know. Picture an old house, windows shut tight against the cold outside. The smell of something hot and herbal drifting through the hallway. In the next room, someone is spending the whole night just trying to breathe. The cough won't stop. The congestion sits in the chest like a brick. Every attempt to pull in a full breath feels incomplete, exhausting. Our grandparents knew that scene well. They lived it many times over. And before there were industrial cough syrups, before there was a pharmacy on every corner, they turned to what they had in the backyard, in the garden, in the kitchen windowsill. Simple herbs, bitter infusions, aromatic steam that filled the room with a dense, grounding smell. It wasn't luxury, it was survival, and it was wisdom, the kind you don't learn from a book, but from watching your mother heal your sibling and your grandmother heal your mother. Do you remember that one grandparent who just knew things, the one who didn't need a prescription to figure out what to make, the one who showed up calm and certain, with a small pot, a bundle of dried herbs hanging in the kitchen, and that quiet confidence that said, "I know what you're going through, and I know how to help." In those hands lived a knowledge that predated them by centuries, a knowledge that passed from one generation to the next, that survived epidemics, hard winters, and world wars, without ever needing a patent or a price tag. As that generation aged, as the world sped up, as modern medicine expanded to fill every corner of daily life, that knowledge got left alone. It wasn't outlawed. It wasn't erased. It simply faded. The way things fade when no one passes them on, and no one slows down enough to notice what's being lost. Hyssop is one of those things that got left behind, and it's time to bring it back. This question sounds simple, but the longer you sit with it, the more uncomfortable it gets. Hyssop didn't disappear from conversation because it's dangerous. It didn't disappear because it doesn't work. It didn't disappear because it's hard to find. The plant exists, it's cultivated, it grows in pots on windowsills and in backyard gardens, and it's sold dried in many herbal and natural health stores. It disappeared because what can't be patented doesn't generate economic interest. Think about the journey a cough medicine takes before it reaches your hands. There's a laboratory that develops the formula, a research division that funds the clinical studies, a legal team that files the patent, a marketing department that builds the campaign, a distribution network that gets it to stores, a pharmacy that places it at eye level on the shelf, and sometimes a doctor who received a visit from a pharmaceutical sales rep and ends up recommending that specific brand. That entire chain survives on one thing, on you not knowing there's another way. That's not conspiracy theory. That's the most basic logic of the marketplace. Something that can be grown in a garden, harvested at home and prepared with hot water, doesn't feed that chain. It has no profit margin, no distribution deal, no advertising budget. And without advertising, it doesn't make the news. Without making the news, it doesn't reach you. Without reaching you, it gets forgotten. The respiratory medication industry generates billions of dollars every year. The numbers are public, audited, available in corporate earnings reports. It's one of the most profitable segments in global healthcare. In that landscape, there is no space, and far less incentive, to remind anyone that a biblical herb, with no trademark and no royalties, could offer a real alternative to someone with a chest full of congestion. That's not an accusation. No company goes to court for failing to promote an herb. It's simply an observation. And sometimes just observing is enough to change the way you see that pharmacy aisle the next time you walk in. Now let's actually get to know what we're talking about. Hyssopus officinalis. That's the scientific name. But the name that matters is simpler: hyssop. It's an aromatic perennial plant, meaning it doesn't die in winter. It comes back every year. It belongs to the Lamiaceae family, the same family as mint, rosemary, sage, and thyme. Anyone familiar with those herbs already understands what that means: concentrated essential oils, potent aromatic compounds, and a long history of medicinal use across widely different cultures. Hyssop grows in low, compact shrubs with small, narrow leaves of deep, rich green. During flowering season, it produces clusters of blooms that can be blue-violet, purple, or white, depending on the variety. It's a genuinely beautiful plant, the kind you'd grow purely for looks, not knowing it carries far more than beauty. The smell is unmistakable, strong, slightly mentholated, with an undertone that recalls resin and a bitter edge that makes one thing clear from the start: this isn't decoration. This has power. Brush your hand along the leaves and the scent stays on your fingers. Brew the tea and it takes over the whole kitchen. The flavor follows the scent. It doesn't go down easy like chamomile or a mild mint tea. It's more intense, bitter. It has that quality that warms your tongue and the back of your throat at the same time. The flavor of something the body recognizes as purposeful. Not dessert, function. And in Scripture, hyssop appears in passages no serious biblical scholar overlooks. In the book of Psalms, King David writes, "Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow." In Numbers, the plant is called upon in purification rituals. In Exodus, it appears in the context of Passover, used to apply blood to the doorframes of homes. The herb referenced in those texts was not chosen at random. It was selected, recognized, respected, used with specific intention. Cultures throughout the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and medieval Europe used hyssop for centuries, not as poetic symbol, but as a plant with real, practical function. Medieval monasteries cultivated it in their medicinal gardens alongside other healing plants, and knowledge about its use was passed down by monks with the same care they gave to other precious traditions of the time. That is the historical weight this plant carries, which is why ignoring it isn't neutrality, it's waste. Let's be straight. We're not promising any cure. We're not going to claim hyssop fixes pneumonia, serious bronchitis, or any condition that requires medical attention. That would be irresponsible, and you deserve serious, honest information. What we will do is explain in plain terms what tradition observed over centuries and what science has begun to investigate regarding this plant's compounds. Hyssop contains essential oils with substances such as pinocamphone and isopinocamphone, along with flavonoids, tannins, and other bioactive compounds. Those technical words, in practice, represent substances that interact with mucous membranes, especially the mucous membranes of the respiratory tract, in a way that people across generations have consistently described the same way. As if stuck, mucus loses its grip, as if what was lodged and immovable begins to shift. What tradition calls breaking up congestion, modern language calls expectorant action. It's not magic. It's plant chemistry interacting with the body's physiology. The compounds in hyssop, when they reach the respiratory mucosa, whether through inhaled steam or ingested tea, may help thin and loosen accumulated secretions, making the cough more productive. A productive cough that actually brings up mucus is a cough doing its job. The problem with dry, stuck congestion that won't budge is that the mucus is simply too thick and too static to be expelled. When it gains fluidity, the body can complete the process it already started on its own. Many people who use hyssop in traditional ways report remarkably similar things: chest feeling lighter after the tea, breathing with more room, a cough that starts to produce something instead of just pounding uselessly at the same wall. It's not a universal guarantee, but it's a pattern of accounts that spans cultures and centuries, and patterns like that don't come from nothing. Beyond that, because it belongs to the same aromatic family as rosemary and mint, hyssop carries an effect that anyone who has ever breathed eucalyptus steam will recognize instantly. That sensation of opening in the nasal passages and throat, of something that was blocked, beginning to have room to move. This happens through the action of volatile aromatic compounds that, once inhaled, interact with receptors in the mucous membranes and produce that perception of clearing. Not placebo, not wishful thinking. The body responding to real stimuli with real responses. Tradition preserved several methods of use that have held up through the centuries without needing any modernization. They're simple, accessible, and don't require special equipment or technical expertise. But they do require respect, because a potent medicinal plant is not the same thing as a harmless one. Tea from dried leaves and flowers, the most classical and oldest form. Dried hyssop leaves and flowers are placed in hot water, not still boiling, but just taken off the heat, and steeped for several minutes in a tightly covered container. Covering it matters. The essential oils are volatile and escape with the steam. Without a lid, you lose a significant part of what makes the tea effective. The result is an amber-colored drink with a strong aroma and a flavor that takes a little getting used to. Drink it hot, in slow sips. The steam rising from the cup begins working on the nasal passages before the first sip even goes down. Steam inhalation with the herb. This was the method grandparents relied on most. Dried herb is placed in very hot water in a bowl or pot. The person leans over the container at a safe distance from the surface, never too close to avoid burns, and covers their head with a towel, creating a kind of closed chamber that concentrates the steam. Breathe slowly and deeply, alternating through the nose and mouth. The session lasts several minutes with breaks as needed. The effect on the airways is immediate and noticeable. The aromatic compounds travel directly to where the congestion is. Honey infused with hyssop in certain Mediterranean and European traditions. Hyssop flowers were macerated or steeped in raw honey and consumed in small amounts, particularly at night before sleep. Honey has its own
Hola,
soothing
¿cuánto
and
cuesta la
protective
manzanilla?
action on the throat lining.
Son 10 pesos el
And
manojo.
combined
¿Quiere
with
uno?
hyssop's compounds, it amplifies the relief without irritating the system. Simple. No laboratory, no packaging, no middleman between you and what works. This is the part that separates responsible information from careless enthusiasm. Hyssop has history, tradition, and centuries of established use. And precisely because it's a plant with genuinely active compounds, it demands careful attention. Natural does not mean safe for everyone, in every situation, at every life stage. Pregnancy. Avoid completely. Hyssop is contraindicated during pregnancy. This warning appears consistently in herbal medicine literature across different traditions and countries. It is not excessive caution, it is a serious, well-established guideline. If you are pregnant, do not use hyssop in any form. No exceptions. Essential oil. Proceed with extreme caution. Hyssop essential oil is an extraordinarily concentrated version of the plant's compounds. It is not tea. It is not an infusion. It is a potent substance that should not be ingested without guidance from a qualified professional. At inappropriate doses, it can cause serious adverse effects on the nervous system. If use of the essential oil is being considered, it should happen under the supervision of a certified aromatherapist or licensed healthcare provider. Young children and people with epilepsy or a history of seizures. Certain compounds in hyssop have a stimulating effect on the central nervous system when consumed in excess. As a precaution, young children and individuals with a history of epilepsy or seizures should consult a healthcare provider before any use, even if it's only the tea. Do not replace medical care. If a cough lasts more than a week, worsens progressively or comes with high fever, shortness of breath, chest pain or blood, this is not the moment for herbal remedies. This is the moment for a doctor. Medicinal plants are support for the body. They are not diagnosis. They don't replace clinical evaluation. They don't treat bacterial infections, resolve pneumonia, or eliminate the need for professional care when symptoms point to something beyond a common cold. Respect for tradition does not exclude respect for medicine. The two can and should coexist. Hyssop is not a discovery. It's a memory. It was in people's hands long before any pharmacy existed, long before any laboratory was built, long before anyone created packaging to contain what nature was already offering for free. It appears in Scripture not as something exotic, but as something ordinary, something anyone would recognize. It was cultivated in the medicinal gardens of medieval monasteries by monks who understood that caring for the body was itself a form of responsibility. It was passed from grandparent to grandchild as part of a quiet repertoire of practical wisdom, the kind of knowledge that doesn't live in textbooks because it lives in the hands and the memory of the people who care for others. That knowledge was not outlawed. It was pushed into forgetting slowly and without fanfare, by the pace of a world that learned to profit more from dependence than from self-sufficiency. When you don't know another way exists, you reach for the shelf. When you do know, you choose, knowing that hyssop exists, understanding how it can help in traditional ways, being aware of its limits and its warnings, knowing when it's the right path and when the right path is the doctor's office. None of that is a rejection of science. It's the recovery of a layer of knowledge that always belonged to you, that was available before you were born, and that for some very convenient reason no one thought to mention. Now you know, and sometimes knowing is all it takes to change what you reach for the next time winter comes. Knocking and chest congestion decides to test your patience.